Good morning and welcome. This is 10 Years Hence. My name is Jim O'Rourke. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Management and director of the Fanning Center for Business Communication. I'll be your instructor and host for this lecture series. We have arranged for you a series of 7 lectures that I think you'll find both interesting and exciting. My aim is to engage in some structured speculation about the future. Specifically, the decade just ahead and the world we're likely to inhabit 10 years from now. We'll do that from a number of perspectives, from the viewpoint of publicly traded corporations, non-governmental organizations, and private institutes. Our speakers come to us from many parts of the nation and all walks of life. Josh Dorfman is founder and CEO of Movavi in Brooklyn, New York. John Smart is president of the Acceleration Studies Foundation in Mountain View, California. Patrick Mulva is Vice President and Controller of the ExxonMobil Corporation in Irving, Texas. Gene Sweeney is Vice President for Environmental Health and Safety Operations of 3M Corporation in Minneapolis, Minnesota. David Walker is CEO of the Peterson Foundation in Washington, D.C. Jack Daly is Senior Vice President of McDonald's Corporation in Oak Brook, Illinois. And Edie Weiner is President of Weiner Edric Brown in New York City. We'll gather here on 7 separate Friday mornings during the spring semester, beginning promptly at 10:40 a.m. each morning and concluding at noon. In order to make this a productive experience, I do have a few requests of you. First, please plan to arrive here on scheduled lecture dates before 10:40 a.m. We will begin promptly at 10:40, and I'd like you to be in your seats by then, ready to listen. Second, please pick up a copy, if you've not already done so, of the syllabus and make note of the dates on which we will gather here. If you're enrolled for the course, I've also emailed you a PDF version of that document, which you'll also find on the Mendoza website. Third, please give our guest lecturers your full attention and complete courtesy. This means, of course, my preference for you to be fully awake and engaged in the process. No trips outside the lecture hall, barring genuine emergency of some sort. Fourth, please turn off your cell phones, pagers, iPods, and your laptops. Please see to it that nothing electronic interferes with our ability to learn from our time here together. Fifth, if you're enrolled in this course for credit, you will be required to attend all 7 lectures. I will handle exceptions to this rule personally and will not permit unexcused absences. You and I can talk about excused absences. Even if an absence is justified, excused, and documented, you'll need to make up the work by attending and summarizing either another lecture here on campus or viewing and summarizing the lecture on video, which will be posted to the Mendoza server. Finally, if you're enrolled in this course for credit, you'll receive a color-coded stamped attendance card at the beginning of each lecture. Please print your name on that card along with the last 4 digits of your student number. At the conclusion of each lecture, we will place receptacles for those cards at the entrances on both the first and second floor. Please deposit your card as you leave. If you do not deposit your attendance card for all of the lectures, you will not receive credit for the course. When our speaker concludes his remarks today, we'll offer you an opportunity to participate by asking questions of him. We'll have wireless microphones, as you can see in the front of the room. We'll have attendants to help bring those microphones to you, not only so that all in the auditorium can hear it, but also so that your question can be recorded as well. Josh Dorfman is an environmental entrepreneur, media personality, and author of The Lazy Environmentalist, Your Guide to Easy, Stylish, Green Living. He's also the founder and CEO of Movavi, a retailer of modern green furniture and furnishings, and of moderngreenliving.com, Movavi's real estate directory for homeowners. Inc. magazine has called Movavi one of the top 50 companies driving today's green revolution. From January 2006 to January of last year, Josh was creator, producer, and host of The Lazy Environmentalist, a national radio show on Sirius satellite radio. He's currently collaborating with the Sundance Channel to develop The Lazy Environmentalist as a reality series for television. about the Lazy Environmentalist book. Dwell magazine called it A Guide to Going Green Without Resorting to Brown Rice Casserole. Josh's latest book, The Lazy Environmentalist on a Budget, Save Time, Save Money, Save the Planet, is in bookstores everywhere. Josh holds an MBA from Thunderbird, the Global School of Management, a BA from the University of Pennsylvania. His environmental epiphany came while living in China during the 1990s to launch Kryptonite Bicycle Locks sales and marketing program. Josh witnessed a nation of 1 billion bicyclists beginning to transform into a nation of 1 billion car drivers, causing potentially unprecedented stress on the global environment. How all countries enable their populations to raise their standard of living while bringing their lifestyles into balance with nature is a vital challenge for the 21st century and is what Josh's ventures strive to address. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Josh Dorfman.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me here today. I am just going to jump right in and repeat some of what was in that introduction so you can kind of hear from me what my perspective is on green, where we are today, and where I think we can go. Perhaps toward the end or in our Q&A, we'll talk about maybe some of the challenges that will influence the timetable of how quickly we get there. But I want to start by talking about this question, which is what I'm constantly thinking about, is who cares about green? Who cares about the planet? And who cares enough about green to actually do something about it? There's been so much talk over the last few years, especially since Al Gore's movie Inconvenient Truth. People want to do something, or they're afraid, or want to get active, or somehow want to participate in this dialogue. But how often does that truly, truly, truly translate into action in our lives? So as I was thinking about this, and I had this radio show on Sirius for a couple of years, and I'll tell you a little bit how that came about, but I started thinking, all right, one day we're like, let's do a radio show about eco-friendly cars. How are we going to get people interested in eco-friendly cars? And we're on Sirius, so we're talking to people all over the country, not just an environmental crowd or a listenership. So how are we going to get them interested? So we went out and we found this guy, Plasma Boy. And Plasma Boy, John Wayland, is a drag car racer. And what he figured out, because he works in a warehouse outside of Portland, Oregon, driving a forklift. And he got the bright idea to take an electric engine from a forklift and put it inside a little 1972 Datsun. And when he did that, and he found an engineer to help him do that, he got this car to go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, an electric car. So he took it onto the racetracks in Portland, Oregon, and he was up against these Corvettes and all these, souped-up cars running on gasoline, and his little tiny white zombie kicked the crap out of everybody there, right? And suddenly this was like an electric car, no gasoline, no carbon emissions coming out of the tailpipe. Certainly there are some issues with electric cars depending on where the energy comes from, but nonetheless, in a more environmentally friendly car, and this guy is dominating the drag racing circuit all across Oregon. So we start telling the story, and these guys are really nutty and very excited about what they're doing. And suddenly we have truck drivers calling in from I-95 all over the country, going, "Man, I want to get that for my pickup truck. I got to get that. I got to get this for my car." And really excited about it because it's 800 pounds of torque and this little tiny electric car, and everyone's excited because you can go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And to me, suddenly as I'm watching, we're doing this radio show every day, and it is an environmental conversation, so the phones don't always light up. But in this case, they do. People are calling in. They're excited about this. And I thought this is, from my perspective, this is the magic. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to find ways to make green appeal to a very broad group, and so that people can get excited about it and start to see that green is not just going to save the planet, but green might actually just make our lives better. And that's what I'm going to show you today, and I'm going to show you lots of examples in lots of different ways that that's happening, trends that I see, and perhaps where this may be going. And a lot of it is certainly very market-based innovation, a lot of it coming from entrepreneurs, and a lot of it coming from large companies too. But yes, to go back for a minute and tell you how I came to this perspective, because it certainly will inform where I'm coming from today as I talk to you. I was not raised as an environmentalist. I was pretty much I graduated from Penn, was a ski bum in Vail for a year, and then I decided I was going to go to China. I thought I'd have a career in diplomacy, so I wanted to learn the language, learn the culture. This was 1995 when I went over. I was a year out of college, and I was teaching English on a university and in a city called Nanjing, and I got this part-time job working for this company, Kryptonite, that makes these bike locks. They were opening their first factory in China. It happened to be in Nanjing where I was teaching. And I was going to the factory, showing up, show that Americans actually watching this production. They'd never seen an American before, so trying to figure out how actually to like do business, or mostly I'm just psyched because I'm making like $10 an hour, and that's a lot of money in China, and it's a pretty good part-time job. But after 2 months, I called Kryptonite, and I was like, guys, I don't know if you know this, but I know we're making these locks and sending them to America or sending them to Europe, and I don't really know a lot about business, but there's 1 billion bicycles here. Maybe we should sell some locks in China. I don't know. It seems like a good idea to me. What do you guys think? And they're like, yeah. If you want, you can try it. Whatever. Take a few locks, see what you can do. So I went to my best English student, this girl Yuan. I said, Yuan, how would you like to be the assistant marketing manager for China for the great Kryptonite Bike Lock Corporation? We're going to go, sell these locks in China. She said, I don't really know what you're talking about, but cool. Let's give it a whirl and see how it goes. So the short of it is I went into town the next day. We're walking around Nanjing trying to explain what we're doing. I don't really speak Chinese at this point, and we're not having much success. But late in the day, we stumble into this very large state-run Chinese company. It's a motorcycle store. There's kind of like a layer of dust on every motorcycle. All the sales employees are asleep. It's about 2 in the afternoon, and we wake them up, trying to explain what we're doing. They go into the back, wake up the Chinese manager. He comes out, Mr. Lee, and he looks at this lock. He's talking with Yuan, and Yuan says, Mr. Lee wants to know how many locks you have. I'm like, well, I have like 2 here. I've got a couple in my dorm room. I've got, 4, maybe 5. Translates. Says, well, Mr. Lee would like to buy 10,000. I thought, great, let me make some phone calls. So I go back to my dorm room. I call Kryptonite and started what became a really interesting adventure for me. For about a year and a half, I ended up traveling all around China, helping to open the Chinese market for these bicycle locks, and which was very challenging. And along the way, we opened a factory in southern China, and the team from Kryptonite was over, the heads from Kryptonite. It was a very big deal. And to celebrate, we were all traveling to this snake restaurant to kind of seal the deal. And I was with the entrepreneur, the Chinese guy who ran this factory. We get to the restaurant, and we pull into this parking lot, southern China, again, 1996, communist country, and every car in the parking lot is a Mercedes. And this guy takes me to the back of his car and says, Josh, look, I want to show you. My Mercedes is this much longer, bigger than every other Mercedes in the parking lot, right? And the pride. And he was just so excited about this. And that was the moment where I started to think, my gosh, right? Like, yes, there's 1 billion bicycles here, but no one wants to ride a bicycle, right? They all want cars. They all want Mercedes. They all want the same things we want. And there's over 1 billion Chinese people. They're 4 or 5 times our population. What will that mean? What will that mean for the planet? What will that mean for the environment? And that, coupled with the fact that these locks were actually a little more expensive than the bikes in China, because it was still early in the market, made me realize that that might be the best opportunity for me. I came back to the States and started thinking about what to do. So I went to business school and ultimately hit on this idea of saying, okay, I worked for a lot of different companies. I worked for internet startups. I worked for some large corporations in Europe. But everywhere I went, I would get into jobs, and at some point I'd be like, man, I know what's coming, because I saw it. I was there. I was in China. I saw the future. I saw what is going to happen to, the stress on resources, the stress on the planet, the pollution that will come not just from America, but from all over the developing world and elsewhere. I can't just go sell toothpaste, or, I just can't do it, because, I know what's coming. How do I participate in change? So the first thing I hit upon was this idea. Can we combine great design, great aesthetics, with environmentally responsible materials? So that's what Movavi has been all about, trying to find designers all around the country, now around the world, who are doing that, using things like bamboo, which is a grass, grows very quickly, it's a great alternative to wood, or just finding ways to work with recycled steel, make really, really beautiful things, and show that the best design on the planet could be environmentally friendly. Because if it's the best design, then it becomes very easy to make that choice, right? To make a better choice for the planet. You're not even necessarily thinking about it. You're just buying something you really, really like. And my thought was, we're at a place where how do we start to shift our behavior? How do we start to shift consumer behavior and start to make choices that are going to send us in the right direction? So we have a showroom in New York City now, in downtown in Manhattan. But to tell you how the Lazy Environmentalist came about, and then I'm going to show you lots of examples of what that really means. I started this company in Washington, D.C. I had been in a PhD program at GW for a semester. I was in political science. I was interested in the globalization and environmentalism and how markets interplay with the environment and all this different kinds of very heady stuff. And after a semester, I realized that wasn't going to be for me. So I left the program and started Movavi and thought I'll just focus on individuals and help them make smarter choices. So I started the company in D.C. and I knew because we were a design company, we had to go up to, I wanted to be in New York. New York was going to be where we would be successful. And because we were going to be really about design to succeed as much as my values are. I was only doing it because I care about the planet. To succeed, we had to be a great design company. And that's another thing that you'll see today with what I'm going to show you. The companies that are actually influencing where we're going to go as a country and perhaps as a civilization understand that to be effective, you have to be really great first and foremost at what you're delivering as well as be environmentally responsible. So I was moving the company up to D.C. I had one employee with me at the time. And we'd been working out of my home. We were an internet startup. She knew me really well. She was my office manager. And this last day, we're packing up. We're going up to Brooklyn. I'm selling her my car. Once we get there, she's taking it back to D.C. Says that, she's not moving with me. This is the end of our working relationship. It's a really long day. It's about 10 o'clock at night. Finally, we're on the New Jersey Turnpike. And she's like hyperventilating in the passenger seat. And we're like, I'm like, are you all right? She's like, Josh, look, I have to ask you something. I have to get this off my chest. I couldn't ask you when you were my boss, but you're not my boss anymore, and I really need to ask you something. So I thought, oh my God, this is awesome. She's attracted to me. It's going to come out. This is like, right? I'm not her boss anymore. This is great. Like I get nervous, starting to think about, this new apartment, how this might play out, and I'm like, yeah. Let's talk about it. I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I'm going to offend you. No. We can. It's cool. Let's talk about it. So she says, all right, are you really an environmentalist? So the night didn't go nearly as I thought it was going to go. And she proceeded to say, you're always in the shower. You never recycle. You were going to throw your bed out. I took it to the homeless shelter. You don't act like an environmentalist. You don't talk like an environmentalist. Like, basically, you suck. And I'm really pissed off. And I've been working for you for a year and a half, and I'm annoyed. So, and I knew exactly where she was coming from. And so I wrote this blog entry a couple days later. This was about 4 years ago, called The Lazy Environmentalist. And essentially I wrote, look, I get it. Global warming is real. Environmental challenges are very real. I'm concerned, very concerned. That's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I'm going to be very honest. As much as I care, as much as I know these challenges are real, I do my best thinking in the shower. I'm probably not going to take shorter showers. As much as I know I'm using water, I'm using heat, it's a really bad idea. So, how are you going to work with me? And you know what? I don't even really want a Toyota Prius, right? I would love to have an Audi TT convertible. If and when I can afford that car, I'm going to get it. If you can make it hybrid, if you can make it plug-in hybrid, biodiesel, ethanol, hydrogen, whatever. If you can make it that, I don't really care what the technology is. I don't really care how you make it eco-friendly. I'll get it. I'll make that choice. But if I'm really, really honest, I'm probably not going to change my lifestyle just to do the right thing. Just to be really honest. So you can preach to me, you can guilt trip me, you can moralize, you can do all these things that we're doing, but they're not really influencing me. And I think there's probably hundreds of millions of other Americans who probably feel the way I do, because if you just look around and see where we are as a country, it's pretty obvious that the tactics we're using as an environmental movement aren't really working that well, right? Because we're not really making the changes that perhaps we ought to change, as much as we may know, and the science continues to come every single day, that we are in a crisis. We are in an environmental crisis. Okay, so lights are still on, still going to school, still going out tonight, still have my friends. Am I really changing my life? Probably not. So let's be really honest, and then let's figure out what we can do. Anyway, that led to this radio show, which has eventually went to Sirius, and eventually now we are developing this show with the Sundance Channel. So we'll start filming that this winter, and I actually fly from here to Park City to starting to work on that a little bit for the Sundance Film Festival, and then it'll start to air this spring. So we've got a lot going on. But this is basically what I'm talking about. How do you make green what people want so we're going to actually do it? And I think it's really possible, and what I get excited about is all of the ways that it's actually happening right now. So to my way of thinking, you know, when we talk about green, it's really this. Well, that's really small. Anyway, it's really that, the new value proposition. Going green is better for the planet, but it's really better for you. And that's what, you know, not all of the choices are that way, but certainly enough of them are that we can start to really think about how this could actually take hold, and people could get excited and start to say, yeah, you know what, I really want to embrace this because this is about me. So I want to show you, I want to run through some different areas of where I see a lot of innovation happening. And this is certainly an area that I focus on a lot, is green consumer choices. So I'll just hit on a few highlights because there are a number of areas that I want to get to this morning. But what's very interesting to me is the way that entrepreneurs are starting to really think about their business models, think about our society, think about ways to do things smarter. And this guy, Tom Zaki, he's about 25 years old. When he was a freshman at Princeton, he and his roommate, John Byer, were trying to grow plants, right, in their dorm room. And they couldn't quite get it to work, at least not as well as they wanted it to. So someone to them said, why don't you use worms? So what are you talking about? Well, use worms. Put them in the soil. Let them, you know, they'll poop. You'll get the fertilizer or whatever, and you know, it'll help. So I'm not sure actually if that helped or not, but it did set off a light bulb for Tom, who said, oh my God, this is actually a really good idea. We could actually take worms, get them to you know, poop out this fertilizer, and we actually have a product that we could sell. So he actually ended up leaving Princeton and starting this company, TerraCycle, based on that principle. And then he went to schools and hospitals, and he said, I tell you what, why don't you give me your used or your empty Coke bottles, Pepsi bottles. I'll take them off your hands, so you can actually, they're going to be reused. And then he said, well, let me take this worm poop. I'll actually just put it in these Pepsi and Coke bottles, because then I actually won't have any cost. You know, because I'm going to go to Burger King and McDonald's and get them to give me their waste food that I'm going to feed to the worms. So instead of Burger King or McDonald's paying someone to actually take it away, they actually would give it to Tom for free. And these hospitals and schools and churches and temples would give him their bottles for free. So suddenly he had this totally eco-friendly product, basically from waste, which he then went to Home Depot and said, all right, here's the deal. This is the most eco-friendly product probably on the planet. You can't really get more eco-friendly because it's all waste. It's also works really well, and it's going to be as affordable as anything else you're going to sell because our costs are really, really low. So we'd like to do business with you. So suddenly this guy who's like 22 years old is now selling his product in Home Depot, and then he starts to say, wow, okay, I've really hit on something here. Maybe we can go to other companies and make some other products. So he went to Kraft, right, giant Kraft, multi-billion dollar company, and said, I tell you what, why don't you give us your Chips Ahoy wrappers, your Oreo cookie wrappers. We're going to make them into umbrellas, shower curtains. We'll make them into binders for school binders or whatever, paper binders. We'll make them into pencil holders. We're going to make them into garbage cans, and we'll do that with all other kinds of waste product too. So now this company is coming out with a product every 2 weeks. It's all made from waste, and because it's such an interesting model, and because they're actually doing a service for companies like Kraft, Kraft is actually paying this company $1 million to take their garbage. And then they get to turn it into products. So this is a company that's finding ways to actually take waste and turn it into products at a very affordable price, which is now selling in places like Staples, Target, Home Depot, Walmart, all over the place. This company called Recycline, they have a line of these colanders, cups, all kinds of product made from recycled materials, principally from Stonyfield Farm yogurt cups. They sell in Whole Foods, which is nice, but there's not a Whole Foods everywhere. But now it was just recently announced that these products are going into Target. So, and Brita, the water pitcher company, or really I should just say the water filtration company, who actually happen to do a lot of work with, just recently announced too that their used filters will also be recycled through Recycline into this line called Preserve as well. So we're seeing companies able to actually use recycled materials to make products that people are actually going to want. And this trend will certainly, I think, accelerate, provided that the products are good. And one of the things that I find really interesting is, one of the reasons why probably the principal reason why we face environmental challenges, why there is global warming, is really only because of consumption, right? That's the only reason we have global warming is because we consume. We consume energy, we consume natural resources, and because we consume, it actually creates these issues. So consuming smarter is clearly, in my view, a way to start to address these challenges. And you know, what if you could say, like Patagonia said, this company that I'm sure a lot of you probably know Patagonia or wearing Patagonia, right? Great outdoor adventure wear, very, very eco-friendly company. Their products are made from very often eco-friendly materials, be it organic cotton or recycled materials for a lot of their jackets and performance wear. But they started saying, you know what, let's create a program so that when people are done using their base layers, their jacket, whatever it might be, they can give it back to us and we'll turn it into a new product. So we don't actually have to go get natural resources. We don't have to actually take polyester or plastic, which ultimately comes from oil. We don't have to do that. We don't have to go get more of that stuff. We'll just take back stuff when people are done with it and we'll turn it into a new product. That's pretty cool, because the implications are, what if you were Prada or Gucci or Tommy Hilfiger or whoever it might be, and you said, or Abercrombie, right? You're like, wow, that's actually pretty cool, because not only are they actually doing this environmental thing, those guys are actually saving some money. Patagonia is saving money because they don't have to go buy new materials. They just get it back from their customers. What if we could do that? What if we could do it so that we could say, okay, here's the new look for the spring. Come get it, come buy it, and when you're done with it, bring it back to our store and we'll give you a 5% discount off your next purchase. Then I guess the question would be, how bad is consumerism? Is consumerism, from an environmental point of view, this great evil, right? Or responsible for all the stuff if we can do it smarter? Because if you could do that, then maybe you start to mitigate the effect on the environment from a smarter business model. Patagonia right now is the only company I've seen that's doing this. But if it takes hold and if they can prove the business case, right? If they can prove that they can actually save money by this model, then you can bet others are going to follow too. Then, of course, we're seeing larger companies start to say, wow, all right, well, this is really real. Consumers actually, to enough of a degree, want to do this, certainly in some product categories, food, cleaning products. So Clorox jumps in with Greenworks, just another company that I do some spokesperson work for, because I just really think this is so important for larger corporations to actually take really substantial, authentic, legitimate steps to enter the green marketplace. And outside of food and beverage, this to me is really the first instance of a Fortune 500 company offering a consumer product that is legitimately eco-friendly. So it's a natural cleaning product. It launched in January 2008. It's already the leader in the category. Clorox also owns Brita, which is interesting, and their program filterforgood.com, which pairs this filter with a reusable water bottle. And a lot of companies are starting to figure out ways to actually, I was going to show you a couple other slides about this too, like a Brita helps you save money, right? Because you're not bringing bottled water into your home. Or I saw this product, I can't actually think, it's like Soda Stream or something. It's like you can make your own soda at home, so you don't have to go out and buy all these like soda bottles, create the waste from like soda bottles, and still get soda at home. Companies trying to figure out how do you make that appealing enough so that people might actually do it, and therefore actually reduce the waste that they're creating in their own lives. Clorox also bought Burt's Bees, which is one of the best natural personal care products companies. So interesting moves by larger companies. This was really interesting to me too. Hopefully we'll see more of this. Target in the spring introduced a line by this guy, Rogan Gregory, who is a very well-regarded, eco-friendly fashion designer. He has a line called Loom State, which is a really cool line of organic denim. It's pretty expensive. So Target went to him and said, all right, well, why don't you do a collection for us? Why don't you make it, we'll use eco-friendly materials, organic cotton, other materials that are maybe recycled materials, and we'll offer it through Target. And as soon as they did that, as soon as this collection actually hit shelves in the spring, it sold out, like almost instantly. You couldn't get it after a couple of weeks. And what I've seen as a retailer, as someone who's been trying to offer product into this marketplace, to do green, and hopefully this trend will continue as well. And I think those of us who have been kind of this, I guess I would say the first of the newer environmental wave, which is really trying to focus on the marketplace as the way to affect change. What we come to realize is you can't really succeed unless you hit the right price point, you have the right distribution, unless you're actually offering products where consumers shop, and you're offering the right products where consumers shop, you're not really going to succeed. Because we won't, as lazy environmentalists, go out of our way to go to the other store where the green stuff is very often if it's not really convenient to do so. So things like this kind of prove the point, though, that when the right product goes into the right distribution outlet, it will sell. And we're starting to see, again, companies doing this more and more. Payless is going to introduce their first eco-friendly collection this spring. So offering shoes, accessories made from eco-friendly materials at very affordable prices, at Payless prices, with Payless distribution, so becoming very accessible. And this is probably, in my view, one of the most important things that has to happen in order for this to continue to grow. One of the other things that's starting to happen is that entrepreneurs are recognizing that there's an opportunity to use eco-friendly materials or technologies in such a way to actually enhance our lifestyles. So this is a solar messenger bag. That solar panel will charge a laptop. So if you're on the go, right, if you don't have access to a power supply, or they'll put these on backpacks too, how else are you going to get power if it's not solar? Very few ways. So this potentially is like a lifestyle enhancer using environmentally friendly technologies to create a better product. So that stuff is very cool to me, but when I was writing this new book, which is actually, it's coming out in March, The Lazy Environmentalist on a Budget, I started looking at what we're calling the service economy, ways to actually interact with products where you might not have to buy them, so you could actually use them when you want to, and then you give them back, or you trade them. So companies like swapstyle.com, which basically takes the idea of saying, okay, we're going to go swap stuff in our room, my friends are going to come over and we'll swap clothes, and puts that on the internet and then says, okay, let's open this up to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Started by a fashionista in Sydney, Australia. So there's people on this site in Milan, in Paris, in London, New York, and elsewhere too, who basically get like first look fashion, right? And then they actually just swap it with each other. So they can refresh their look without spending money, without consuming, right? Without increasing their carbon footprint, by swapping with each other and still getting really cool stuff. Bag, Borrow, Steal. This was in the Sex and the City movie. Carrie says to her assistant, she says, where did you get that great Prada? She says, Bag, Borrow, Steal. So the idea here is, just as a model, right, of what may be coming, okay, I want a Prada, Gucci, Chanel, whatever. I don't want to spend $2,200, $2,500 on a handbag. Maybe I can rent it for, a week because I've got a big occasion, Thursday night where I'd love to have the right bag or whatever. And so I'll just rent it for the week for like a fraction of that price, and then I'll give it back so someone else can use it. So that works for me. I get what I want when I need it. And then other people get to use it too. So what does that ultimately mean for the economy? Well, if models like this start to take hold, we get things when we need them, but ultimately, in the aggregate, we're actually consuming less and still getting what we want when we want it. So it's a way to reduce the overall carbon footprint and still kind of lead the quality of life that we enjoy. I rent to you. An interesting concept of websites like this are actually starting all over the world. There's one in New Zealand, one in Germany, I think one in Japan, same exact concept. They launched right around the same time that says, you know what, I've got some things in my house, I'm going to rent them, right? I've got a lawnmower, I've got a leaf blower, I've got whatever, Italian language tapes, I'm going to put them on I Rent to You, and then people who are in my neighborhood can just rent them for like a fraction of the price when they want it. So if I need a leaf blower like once a year, why should I go buy one if I could just go to a site and maybe rent it from my neighbor, right? There's companies like neighborrow.com or another website that does the exact same thing. And you're seeing other models sort of like this too. Goozex.com, this is a site for gamers where you can actually swap video games on all kinds of platforms, and you don't have to actually pay a lot of money. You don't have to go buy them new. Chegg.com. Anyone using Chegg.com? Anyone know Chegg? Yeah? Textbooks? So what I've heard about Chegg is you can actually rent your textbook for like a fraction of the price. At least half off. So you get your textbooks for half off for the semester, you give them back to the company, and then someone else can rent them too. Right? So what is that? So that ultimately reduces the number of trees we're cutting down just to have textbooks, and students get to save money. Better for the planet, better for your pocket. Zwaggle is a site for new parents, for newborns, where gently used baby items are being traded. So, interesting stuff there. So, recycling. There's a couple of things here that I actually think are absolutely fascinating. I was interviewed by a French TV company in the spring, and they were saying, Josh, okay, you're doing this stuff, but, America, what do you guys really think you can give the world? I mean, come on, from the environment. We're so far ahead of you, like, seriously. I mean, this was I didn't know this was what the first question was going to be, but that's what the first question was. And they had come to our showroom to interview me. So I thought about it, and I thought, well, I understand what you're saying, because from a policy point of view, from perhaps an awareness point of view, Europe, France, maybe further ahead than the U.S. But let me tell you about a company called Recycle Bank. Because this to me seems sort of like, inherently an American story, and I'm not sure if this could happen anywhere else in the world as a story of entrepreneurship. So this guy, Ron Gonen, grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He went to Columbia Business School, and when he graduated from Columbia, he went back to the city of Philadelphia and said, look, guys, last year, you as a city spent $100 million landfilling recyclable garbage, rather. You spent $100 million, put stuff in the landfill that could have and should have been recycled. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take your recycling trucks, because you have them, you're just not using them. We're going to take your fleet, and we're going to retrofit them with a little scanner. And then we're going to put these blue bins into everyone's home. And then into that bin, every homeowner or resident can put all of their recyclables. They can put their aluminum, their glass, their cereal boxes, whatever. They can dump it all in one container. And then what we're going to do is once a week, we'll come by, we'll pick up the container, and we're just going to scan it for weight and volume. We'll get a sense of what's inside. We won't know exactly, but we'll have a pretty close approximation. And then we're going to take all of that waste, and we're going to take it to the recycling center. And we're going to make sure that it gets recycled. And then homeowners or residents are going to log on to recyclebank.com, just type in their account number, and they'll see how much was recycled in their bin. And then they're going to actually get to redeem that as a dollar value at our partners like Starbucks and Best Buy and Circuit City and Whole Foods and lots and lots of other companies. So they're actually going to get paid to recycle. And we're going to make it really easy for them. And we're going to, by the way, we're going to save you $20 million in the process. We'll charge you $80 million, and we're going to create jobs here in Philadelphia because we're actually going to get the recycling centers working. Do you guys want to do that? So Philadelphia tested it, and I think is still testing it, but it's rolled out in places like Wilmington, Delaware. It's rolling out through New England. It's being tested in New York City right now. These guys have raised probably close to $100 million. Coca-Cola is an investor. They're in 27 or 28 states across the country as they roll out through actually this part of the country and on further toward the Rocky Mountains. Because everybody wins, right? Cities get to save money, or towns get to save money. Homeowners get to earn money, and products that should be recycled are actually getting recycled. This to me is like, I can't really think. So when someone says, well, what is America? What do you have to offer? I don't really see this coming from, this is like, who else is going to think of something like this and actually get the capital and raise the capital to make it happen? These are the kinds of things that are happening in America, and this is incredibly exciting. This is game-changing. When you think about food, or you think about anything else that might be in our home, right? So if we could actually get our recyclable stuff to get recycled, if we could take our food waste, which is actually, I think, if not the biggest waste product in landfills or waste category, it's one of them, what if we could just easily compost it at home? Composting is kind of a pain in the neck. It's kind of, you need a lot of worms, you need a big pile of junk, you need smells, it's inconvenient. But what if you could just compost in something that looked like a little garbage can? Right? So this is an automatic composter. It was designed by a guy out in Silicon Valley who thought, yeah, that actually makes sense. And so what if we could just take our food waste, put it in a little automatic composter, and then every couple of weeks we get fresh compost, either for gardeners, that's great. If not, maybe there's places in our community where we could take it where actually gardeners might want it, or we could just bury it. But we would be preventing all of this waste from going to landfills, and as we know, landfills Well, certainly, to some degree, we're running out of space, and to another degree, landfills, as everything decomposes, they also give off a lot of methane gas. Methane is actually more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So there's a lot of reasons to limit what we're sending to landfills. So suppose you could combine Recycle Bank with some automatic composters, and then with websites like myboneyard.com that actually pay you to recycle your electronics. So if you were to go onto that site and say, okay, here's my cell phone or my laptop, or I think they'll take monitors too, and they're expanding the categories, and there's a number of other companies like this, they'll actually pay you. You know, they'll say, okay, find your model, tell me what condition it's in, I'll tell you how much it's worth, you send it to us, we'll send you a check. So now everything coming out of your home could potentially be recycled, and you could potentially be making money to do it. Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't someone want to do that if we were incentivized to do the right thing, right? Rather than saying, oh, we have to recycle, you have to separate your stuff. You know, I just think it's a pain. I think it's hard. I don't like doing it. And I like stuff like this. Because I think it encourages us, not, you know, and it's not a, it's, you know, I don't know that we necessarily pat ourselves on the back. I mean, we should probably be recycling right now anyway. But if we're not, this stuff gets us going in the right direction. And then for everything else, there's always freecycle.org. And Freecycle, as I'm sure some of you know, is anyone using Freecycle? Does anyone use Freecycle here? Well, there's a hand. All right, that's good. Freecycle may be the largest environmental organization in the world. And I say that because last count, or at least when we had Darren Beal on our radio show, they had, I think, about 5 million people around the world who were signed up and using Freecycle. And the number grows by 20,000 every week. And all Freecycle is like an email listserv for your local community, where you say, I've got a couch, I've got cabinets, I've got, you know, a refrigerator to give away. Does anybody want it? That's the whole model. And then anyone can say, who's on that list, yeah, I'd like it. I'll come get it from you. And that's it. Very, very simple, but it has exploded. And Darren, by the way, is the only employee. He's got 10,000 volunteers. People are so passionate about this organization. And as I've thought about it and tried to understand, well, why would that be? Why would Freecycle take off like this? And one of the things I think is because you're actually seeing very often who you're giving your goods to, whatever you have in your home. There's like a human element, a human connection, and a community connection to this model. And it's proven very, very effective. So it's not just sort of like a faceless thing that we do, but there's a real community positive impact to what Freecycle is all about. So just to kind of put this in perspective for a moment, this is sort of what I'm talking about, and this is really what I'd like to hit home about, is that what I'm simply suggesting is that what I'm showing you and what I think can take hold are things that have the same goals. You know, we're trying to get to the same place. We're trying to conserve, we're trying to protect the planet, we're trying to make it healthier, but you know, is there a way to look at environmentalism in terms of innovation as opposed to saying environmentalism must mean sacrifice, right? It must mean sacrifice. I mean, what if we don't have to think about it that way? What if it's an opportunity to say, we're just going to do things a whole lot smarter, right? Because environmentalism is an opportunity to innovate. And what if we're going to paint a vision for the future that's really positive and something that we're going to actually want to engage in, look forward to, you know? Because that's what I think the opportunity with environmentalism is. I think for whatever we say we want, whatever values you may hold, I think that there's an environmental solution that would probably fit. You know, if you want to save money, if you want to look stylish, if you want to, you know, have the latest technology, I mean, whatever it may be, you know, I do think that the environment can fit and meet and match those goals. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, and then I'm going to wrap up after. Let's have a couple more things to get through. So I want to talk about transportation, what's going on here. So you've got traditional cars get better mileage, new cars coming that are like may get ridiculous mileage, and then you've got you know, some other cool things happening. So we've got the Prius, but the point, my only point on the Prius, and this is a 2010, which also has a solar panel on the roof to power the AC and stuff. Well, there was a poll in the New York Times, a survey asking Prius drivers, why do you drive this car? And 65% of them said, I drive it because of what it says about me. And I think this is like fascinating, you know, that people buy the Prius because when they drive this car and they're driving on the highway or driving down the street, you know, they know that everyone else knows that they are awesome, right? They are a hero of the planet. and it's totally clear to everybody how great they are. And to my way of thinking, great. If that's what's going to get you in a car that gets 50 miles per gallon, as this next generation will, fantastic. And let's figure out 1,000 other ways to create solutions that are going to do the exact same thing, right? Whether it's a home that might look a little bit different but still cool enough that you might want to live in it, or clothing, or who knows what it might be. How do you capture that, right, and make that happen in other product categories? Because if that's why people are buying this car, so be it. It doesn't really matter. Mother Nature doesn't really care, I don't think, why people go buy the Prius. But I think Mother Nature's relatively pleased about that choice. Honda's coming out with this car in the spring, the Insight, which won't get quite as good gas mileage, but it will compete, and it's also going to be the most affordable hybrid to date. So prices are starting to drop on these cars. Ford's coming out with, I think, a Ford Fusion hybrid, which is going to get very high gas mileage and be more affordable too. So that's a cool trend to watch. But this is also a pretty interesting trend to watch. What a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to do to create transportation that may be totally game-changing. This is the Aptera. It's been in the works for a few years. It has these doors kind of open Lamborghini style. It's a three-wheel car that gets, it's electric. When it's running on electric, it gets the equivalent of 300 miles per gallon. It's going to launch in California. It was supposed to launch in about this time, kind of early January 2009. It's been delayed for about 8 or 9 months. Hopefully it will come in October. And hopefully this one will come. But if not this one, others will come. There's something also called the Auto XPrize. Anyone heard of the XPrize? The first one sent someone into space to try and jumpstart space travel. The next one's the Auto XPrize to try and create cars that will get the equivalent of 100 miles per gallon. And it's actually a contest. And so the way that this is being set up for the Auto XPrize, for the Space XPrize, someone did win it that went into space twice, I think, in 24 hours or in 2 weeks and orbited the globe, which has led to a lot of interest in space travel, and Richard Branson doing his whole thing down in Phoenix with his the space station he's building, or spaceport. So the Auto XPrize is actually a competition that teams, I think over 40 teams from around the country have entered in. To get into the Auto XPrize, and it's auto.xprize.org if you want to check it out, you have to have a prototype of a car that gets 100 miles per gallon, or the equivalent, because if it's electric, it's not actually per gallon, right, but the equivalent of 100 miles, accompanied with a business plan of how you could mass manufacture this car. Once the prototype is approved and the business plan is kind of approved by the expert panel that reviews it, you get to enter the race, which is essentially like a road rally, sort of like a Tour de France type race, where there's different stages where you're being timed, you're being tracked for best time and best miles per gallon or equivalent. And this race is going to go across America. They were shooting for 2010, maybe it's 2011. I'm not sure exactly when it will happen. But there will be cars that get the equivalent of 100 miles per gallon racing across America within the next couple of years. The winner, at the end of it, gets the $10 million prize. The hope is that lots of these cars will generate enough investor interest that we may actually jumpstart a new industry and not be stuck with companies that have a hard time bringing to market cars that are really game changers. Zipcar, you guys have Zipcar here? South Bend? Car sharing? No? There must be some car sharing thing here. Well, it's got to be coming soon. Zipcar, Zipcar is a company that launched a few years ago, and essentially the idea here is, hey, you know what? If you're living in a city, maybe you don't need to own your car to have access to a car. So I think they're in about, maybe 40 cities, 45 cities. There's cars all in designated parking spots around the city. You show up, you go online, you reserve a car for when you want it, you show up at the parking spot, you swipe you get sort of like a credit card that has your account number over the window. The door opens, you get in, you drive the car, bring it back to that spot, next person gets to drive it. They've got cars like different Mazdas, Mini Coopers, BMWs, all kinds of different cars. So you actually can drive a pretty cool car when you want it, and then you get to share it with other people. So you don't have to actually own a car. You don't pay for insurance. You don't pay for gas. You just pay an hourly fee. And it's a way for a lot of people to use the same car. And studies show that doing this is as members sign up, it's kind of like for each car that's in this program, it's the equivalent of taking about 14 cars off the road. So pretty cool program. So cool, in fact, that Enterprise Rent-A-Cars decided that they're going to launch their own. It's called WeCar, and Hertz just announced that they're doing the same thing. Enterprise said when they launched WeCar, though they've had some trouble rolling it out, they said, thank you, Zipcar, for doing our market test for us. We'll now take it from here. It's proven a little bit harder for them to actually roll it out than they thought, but the larger rental car companies in the world are looking at Zipcar, this little tiny startup, which is now a $100 million company, and going, wow, I can't believe that people actually want to use cars this way. We never thought this would work. But it is working, and more people are signing up. So we better jump into the game, because the game is changing. And then you take that a step further, and you say, well, what if we could make ride sharing or carpooling cool enough for people to actually want to do it? Cool enough to share a ride, cool enough to like risk getting in the car with someone who might have like bad music taste or like a terrible, car deodorizer or whatever. So Zimride comes along, and a lot of other companies have come along too, but Zimride comes along and says, well, let's develop this ride-sharing application for Facebook. So, and by doing that, we're going to reach over 80 million people and give them an opportunity to share rides, because our thought is that if you're a friend of a friend, right, if you're like Facebook, whatever, I'm 36. I mean, I just got on Facebook, so I'm trying to still figure it out, but apparently I have a lot of friends. But anyway, so if you trust someone because they're in your network, right, then you would be more apt to say, okay, well, I'll share a ride with that person. I'm going home for spring break, or so. This is a way to actually encourage people to share rides, because obviously if one car takes two people home to the same area rather than two cars, there's environmental benefit there. So that's all good. But, I heard this, I just can't remember his name, but I was at a conference at the Aspen Institute, an environmental conference last year, and this guy's on stage, he's going, yeah, all you and it was all environmentalists there. And he's like, all you environmentalists, you pat yourself on the back because of the Prius. He's like, but the Prius is still a car, and as environmentalists, why would you think that's the solution? We have to get away from cars. Now, that may not be so practical, but I certainly understood where he was coming from. So how do you get people out of cars? Well, what Boston just announced is that they're actually putting Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, in all of their trains. So if you're commuting into the city, now you're a little more incentivized to actually get on the train because you actually get free Wi-Fi, right? And they interviewed the guy who's the manager of this program for Boston. He said this is the best thing of anything they've ever tried to try and get people out of cars and onto trains, was putting free Wi-Fi on the trains. And how much did it cost them? It cost them like $1.5 million to do this. That's what it cost the city, this one program. And you just think like, yeah, like, duh, like, why is that? Why didn't you think of that before? Like, why hasn't every city thought of this? Because it's not terribly difficult, right? It's just thinking a little bit outside the box to get a little bit smarter. And thinking, largely way outside the box, you have what launched in Paris last summer. This is a program called Vélib, where the city of Paris now has 20,000 bicycles on the streets that are locked up at these stations. There's about 1,500 of them in Paris, so about every quarter mile or so. About every quarter mile or so, you'll come to one of these different stations. And what you do, you sign up for the program. It's like probably the equivalent of $40 or $50 for the year. And then you can pick up a bike from any station. You just go to the station, you swipe your card, your membership card, you get the bike. You can ride it anywhere you want. The first half hour is free. So, you can get anywhere in the city for free on a bike for half an hour, and then you can just leave it at any other station. So you don't have to worry about locking it up. You have no inconvenience of trying to store it somewhere. And Parisians love this, and people who have gone to Paris who have tried it love it. It's not just in Paris. I mean, it's in lots of European cities, but this is the biggest rollout that ever took place. And if you can do it in a city the size of Paris, why can't we do it here? I mean, we have a small test going on in Washington, D.C. right now where a similar model just rolled out last year. But this is probably coming too. And this is really exciting because this says, great, get healthier, get where you want to go, and it's really convenient. You do it on a bike. So a couple of things that I just wanted to, I tend to try and update my slides as quickly and as recently as possible. This I actually saw in the New York Times yesterday, which I thought was kind of cool. Bright-Built Barn, basically it has these like mood rings around the house. This is a new prefab company that's trying to build green homes at a low price that have these mood rings so you can see how much energy you're using. It's a very energy efficient home, and also your neighbors can see. So right? Sort of like this reverse sort of, you know, or the psychology of keeping up with the Joneses in like reverse somehow or something. But these things are coming too. They're a little gimmicky, but that competition seems to work. And also when we can actually see how much energy we're using, there are studies that show when we can actually monitor it in real time, we do decrease the amount that we use. This is a company called Earth Button, which I just got an email about, so I threw it up here. This is a program where you actually can see on your computer how much energy everything in your home is using, and then also on your computer you'll start to turn off lights, turn off TVs, turn off individual appliances, lower the blinds, kind of like the future of what's coming. This is still rolling out. It's very new, but I just figured I'd throw it up as something that's kind of happening. There's some technologies that are so they're so low tech, but they're just so smart. These are tubular skylights. So rather than regular skylights, these are like literally tubes that will run from your roof down into your home, channel sunlight down into your home. They can go into your living room. They could actually run for long enough to potentially go into like your basement if you wanted to get sunlight in your basement. And why, for building, especially for building new homes, why would we possibly build homes where you have to turn the lights on during the day? It just makes no sense. These cost about $300 each, so they're actually pretty affordable. Some will cost as little as $100 each. They're pretty easy to install in your home. You don't have to make structural changes to your home. These products are here. Interior designers really like these products. It's not always easy to get consumers or homeowners to put them in their home, but they're here. From a lazy environmentalist point of view, we know we're supposed to turn the lights off. We don't always turn the lights off. So motion sensors, I'm sure they're in a number of the buildings here at Notre Dame, will turn the lights off for you when no one's in the room, right? They sense motion. They even have them now for power strips, so you could put one around your computer, your home office, your TV setup, so that if no one were in there, or in the computer and all the peripherals are on, they would shut off and on by motion. You may not want your computer shutting off all the time, so it actually has one spot where you can control it manually. Everything else would be controlled by this motion sensor. From a lazy environmentalist point of view, just in terms of efficiency, this is a great shower head, the Evolve shower head. So there are a lot of low-flow shower heads. Shower heads, right now it's regulated that shower heads they can't flow more than 2.5 gallons per minute. A lot of older shower heads flow way beyond that. Low-flow shower heads to qualify have to flow 1.5 gallons per minute, or thereabouts, 1.59, I think this one is. That saves a lot of water, right? So you could take a longer shower and save some water. And it also saves a lot of heat because you're heating less water. But what's particularly interesting about this one is it really reflects consumer behavior, because what the Evolve shower head does is that actually when you turn your shower on, once the water gets to 95 degrees, the flow reduces to a trickle with this one. Nothing comes out. And nothing comes out until you pull, there's actually on the new ones, there's like a cord that you pull and then the water comes out. And the reason why they designed it this way is because so often, right, how many times do we turn the shower on and then we go make the bed or watch TV or, we're waiting for it to heat up and then it's just running and Oprah's not over yet, so we're waiting to see what happens before we go in the shower. And this way, not only does it use less water when you're in it, it actually cuts the flow until you get in it. Now, is it laudable that this is our behavior and we'll just let the shower run when we're not in it? No. But do we do it? Well, some of us might do it, and this is a way to counteract the effect. Lastly, this is I've often thought from a lazy environmentalist point of view, you can say to people, turn the water off when you brush your teeth. It's boring. Turn the water off when you wash your face or whatever. It's just or when you shave. Well, do we always do it? Maybe. Some of us do. But if you had this little, Aqua's toilet system in your house and you had a little tank beneath your sink where when you were washing your face, brushing your teeth, the water went down into that tank, the dirty parts got, filtered out, and then a little tube ran to your toilet, you could flush your toilet with recycled water from your sink. So then you might not have to worry so much about, turning off the water when you brush your teeth, because you're going to recycle that water to flush the toilet. And this was actually started by a guy, Mark Sanders, when he was 8. He thought of this, and then he went on with his regular life. And then 28 years later, he was like, you know what? I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to do this. So he just launched this product in this company just a couple years ago. Lastly, just a few slides on cleaner energy, and then I'll wrap up. solar is expensive, as we all know. And to put solar on your house may cost $40,000 or $50,000, right, to install it on your house. It's expensive. And when you say to people, or you say, you know, the response when consumers will say, well, I'd love to do it, it's just too expensive. For so long, the response of the solar industry was, well, you should do it anyway. It's like, well, I'd love to do it, but it's too expensive. Well, you should do it anyway. Well, you should do it anyway doesn't work. It doesn't really work, which is why there's very little solar on homes around America. So Solar City comes along and they say, screw it, we'll do it differently. We will lease you solar panels just like you would do a car lease, 0 money down. We'll put them on your house. You get all the solar energy, and you know, we'll charge you maybe $70 a month for that. But you're going to save over $70 a month from month 1. So you're going to start saving money as soon as we put these solar panels on your house. Do you want to do it? Now, if you care about the planet, yeah, I want to do that. If you don't care about the planet, yeah, I want to do that because I'm going to save money, right? So a different model now starts to enable solar to become much more realistic. And this company started in California, and they too are starting to roll out across the country. So solar, you know, in terms of, again, just from a larger perspective of jobs, and, you know, we talk a lot about green jobs, and President-elect Obama is talking about green jobs. And this is not something that's theoretical. This is something that's actually happening. It's happening in interesting places. It's Toledo, Ohio, right, which was traditionally a powerhouse in glass manufacturing, mostly for the auto industry. But then those jobs went away, and Toledo was part of the Rust Belt. But now you actually have solar companies from all over the world actually coming to Toledo to open offices, to open manufacturing facilities, to conduct research with the University of Toledo, because this glass manufacturing expertise is actually really vital to next generation solar, where you can print solar panels actually onto glass. It's called thin film solar. So you're seeing a revitalization in some really interesting places, and green is the opportunity to bring jobs to places where there were no jobs, right? That is cool. That is really cool. And the same thing too for wind. You know, it's not theoretical to say that there's going to be wind, wind turbines going up and jobs created. In the hills of western Pennsylvania, this was a couple of years ago actually, former steel workers, same thing, saw their jobs go overseas, got hired by a company called Gamesa from Spain, who came to take those same factories where they were building steel and start building wind turbines. So now you're saying, okay, cool. If you can go to people and say, hey, how would you like a job that's going to have good long-term prospects, that's going to pay you well, that's going to make our country more secure, and actually support the goal of energy independence? How would you like that? Is that, what do you think? I think a lot of people would say, yeah, that sounds really good. And then you say, and guess what? It's going to be better for the planet too. Bonus, right? But the things that we value as a country, this is what green delivers, and will continue to deliver. And lastly, I'll leave you with this one slide because I just find this very powerful for me in terms of thinking about green and telling the story about green and what this might mean for us as individuals and as a country and as communities. This is a school going up outside of Atlanta, Georgia. It's being built to green standards. So that means, of course, using a lot of recycled materials, very energy efficient. It's going to be great for the planet. Without a doubt, this is a better building for the planet. But studies by this company Perkins Will, which is the leading sustainable architecture firm in the country, have found that students who actually get to study in green buildings and green schools, their performance goes up 20% just by virtue of the fact that they're in a green school. Because the air quality is better, the light is way better, a lot more daylighting, and because of those things and some other factors, their performance goes up, everything else being equal. So if I'm a student or if I'm a parent, where do I want my kid to go to school? Right? What school do I want in my community? I want the green school. Is it because I care about the planet? Well, yeah, maybe. But is it because I want to have every opportunity, I want my child to have every opportunity to excel in life, to have every opportunity that they could possibly have to go to the best college they could possibly get into? Of course. And that's what green is. And this is where I'll leave off with you today, but really I would just, emphasize that point that this is what's coming. And what I really hope happens and continues to happen is that we start to engage green and think about the environment from this point of view, which says, how can we start to do things smarter? How can we start to do things that enable us to move into a future that we're going to really, really want to be part of because it's actually going to be better than today, precisely because it's more in balance with nature. Thank you. And I'll gladly take questions.
Josh, could you talk a little bit about your business? I'm interested in knowing how you market through furniture and other furnishings, and I'm also interested in knowing if you're making any money.
So how do we market our business, and how are we doing in that business? The challenge, I mean, kind of as I outlined here, the challenge that I've found is how do you find the market? How do you find the consumers that are going to want to engage these choices, that are looking for them? And I found that to be really, really difficult. And I've found that there's a big disconnect between the dialogue we have as a country in terms of and the thought that green has gone mainstream. We read so much press and where it's actually happening. So the first thing that I did was I launched this moderngreenliving.com, which is a real estate directory online and for green homes and green places to live. Because I thought if people are searching for green homes and we have the directory where they're going to find those homes, and somehow I can integrate that with my furniture company, people who are looking for green homes are probably going to be people who want green furniture. So let me see if I can market to them by virtue of creating another service, which then will enable me to market my furniture to them. It was the first thing I tried, which was not really successful. So then the next thing that we tried, which we're doing right now, we actually said, well, let's go open a showroom inside a luxury green condominium building, which is what we did. So then we said, well, let's just take our furniture right to the market. So Battery Park City was interesting after 9/11. The Battery Park City Corporation, so downtown Manhattan, said that all new building in Battery Park City will have to meet green standards. Everything new has to be built to green standards. So you actually have more green condominiums and apartments in Battery Park City probably than anywhere else in the world right now. So we actually went there into a new building called the River House and opened a showroom inside the River House and thought, okay, well, let's go to where these people are actually coming to live. And New York's an expensive place to live, so perhaps we sell. I mean, our furniture they are luxury items at this point, so maybe that's going to work. And we found that was actually working until the financial crisis that we're in started to hit, and especially and in New York too, it kind of has hit pretty severely. So up through September, that was doing very well, and then it's really dried up. So that business, Movavi, has been a very challenging business for us, and we're not making a lot of money. We're wrestling with that business with breaking even, which is also, in truth, why I've really engaged a lot of the media stuff, because first it was because of necessity. As an entrepreneur, I needed another income stream, and I could make that doing a radio show and some of these other things. So now I do both.
Over here. It seems like a lot of the green movement has been sparked from two factors. One is climate change and maybe awareness of climate change. And two, I would say high fuel prices. When fuel prices were at $4 a gallon, alternative energy became much more attractive. It got to the forefront of government minds. But as fuel prices come back down to $1.50, and as this financial crisis emerge, do you see any loss of momentum of this green movement, or do you see it not being on the first item of the agenda now, maybe the fifth item on the agenda in terms of decision makers?
Yeah, I think without question there's a loss of momentum. And you're absolutely right that gas price makes green something that's very front and center in a lot of people's minds, and when it goes down, it's less so. And certainly the economic situation that we're in doesn't help. But I think also that how can I say this? In 2003, 2004, when I started working on Movavi, it was really amazing to me. It was a moment when I don't know what was happening in our society or why it happened, but that was the moment when entrepreneurs, when designers, furniture manufacturers, what I was looking at, started introducing these lines. And they were people who were probably in their late 20s, early 30s, who said, you know what, I'm just tired of green being hippie, ugly, crunchy, furniture that's like, they call it green and it looks like a bunch of twigs tied together with some rope. You're supposed to sit on it. I'm tired of that. I'm going to design for me and my friends. It just started happening all over the country. It wasn't on anyone's radar, right? But for some reason, it started to happen, and then there were some folks like me who were like, and we're going to go look for it, and we're going to try and use our business backgrounds to bring it, to a wider audience. And then Al Gore's movie came out, and what was important, I think, after Al Gore's movie came out, the media's turned around and started saying, all right, we want to cover this story. But the media is very diverse. So the media is also places like Lucky Magazine, Domino Magazine, Vanity Fair, Vogue, Cosmo, Glamour, whatever. When they want to cover green, they've got to go look for something that their audience is going to be appealing to their audience. And suddenly, unlike 4 or 5 years ago, or even 3 or 4 years ago, in that moment after Al Gore's movie came out, there was all of this interesting product to show, all of this well-designed product to show, and the story suddenly had momentum. Because there were solutions that people had been working on in a new way before Al Gore's movie came out. So that momentum, I think, is still there. I think the entrepreneurial drive is still there. Last year, in 2008, the solar industry, solar startups, or the top 10 clean energy startups in the world received close to $2 billion in seed capital. So venture capital is still funneling to really good companies. It's certainly being slowed down, but, so that's one thing I see. And then the other thing I see that I think makes this a little different is that when you can say to someone, hey, here's an energy-efficient dishwasher, or an energy-efficient refrigerator, or an energy-efficient HVAC system, and if it's a comparable price and you're going to save money, saving money is always something that people are going to want to do. And I think that green actually will continue to have a lot of momentum because it's going to continue to hit on that too. And then a lot of stuff's just going on behind the scenes because companies realize it's a smarter way to do business. Walmart is doing a lot of green initiatives because they realize it helps their bottom line as much as it helps them, and maybe the consumer, hopefully the consumer. HP, talking about designing products better, won an award recently because they started really thinking about how they design their computers and saying, can we design our computers in such a way so that the whole thing can be modular, so that when we take the computer back, because we will take it back now, we'll recycle it from a homeowner or a consumer, we're going to be able to, we've put everything in, rather than using glue, we've actually used buttons. So we can just unclick stuff and put it into new computers so we can recycle and we can design better because it's better for our bottom line. So I think there's a lot of that kind of momentum which will propel this forward, and then hopefully things will start to turn.
Sort of along the same lines, I've heard in the news recently about how recycling centers are actually really, they're downwind from the lack of consumer demand. So before, they had a huge market for the things they collected. They were making tons of money selling the cardboard, selling the aluminum. Now, there's no market because manufacturing itself has gone down and they don't have space. They're actually charging people to bring things to the recycling centers. It seems like you kind of have a finger on the pulse of the innovation and things. I'm just wondering if this is something we have to wait out, or is there a new market for those recycled goods that might help this?
Yeah, I think it's a challenging issue. Certainly when the economy's going full bore and people just can't get enough material, that helps recycled materials. A lot of the recycled materials that were, the garbage in this country, there's sort of an irony that we were sending our garbage to China to turn into product to send back to us, right? And that's kind of dried up because the Chinese don't need as much material to do that. I think this kind of goes to just some of the challenges of scaling the systems up that will enable us to transform to a green economy. I think that it will take more time now. But it's certainly there's always been the question, or I've often thought of the question, even when my recycling comes to get picked up, like, does it really get recycled? How do we really know? Has anyone ever done an expose? Followed the truck, seen where it's gone? And I don't know, and I think a lot of people have that question. But I think that, the recycling is, and there are other areas too, where it's going to take time to put systems into place that really make it very efficient. So this is certainly a setback. I think one of the other places you see it is also in the carbon, what we call carbon offsets. The idea that, companies or individuals can purchase carbon offsets. So if I fly on an airplane and I book it through Expedia.com, they'll let me buy a carbon offset that supposedly will offset the carbon that's come out of the plane, and therefore I'm carbon neutral. You guys know that concept? I'm not really sure I buy into that concept because the plane still flew and that carbon went into the atmosphere. But some of the programs that get funded are or carbon offsets come from saying, we're going to put a cover over, a cow, farm, right? Because we're going to actually capture the methane that comes from cow flatulence, which is actually a pretty big deal, and we'll use that as energy because we can power our farm from the methane or something like that. So, offsets are designed to actually, you're sort of paying to make that project happen. A lot of people who do these projects say the project would happen anyway. The farmers say, yeah, we do it anyway. We got this nice revenue stream, carbon offsets. They're paying us to do it. We do it anyway, right? But it's so early that they're probably, this will take time to scale up where actually companies or farms will be incentivized by, people buying these offsets that enable them to implement projects that they might not implement otherwise. It just is going to take time, just like I think making recycling really, something where we have, enough material going to them and enough, the system really in place that people will be incentivized to keep those centers open and run that kind of business.
We have time for one more.
I hate to hit you with another kind of macro, big picture economic question, but I think it's kind of relevant in today's trying times. You've talked a lot about green transportation, and certainly I think a lot of the kind of train, riding the train that you talked about, a lot of the vehicle kind of swapping, renting that you talked about is certainly a good idea, but I think one thing that we can't escape is that America is a culture that's driven by, the automobile. And I think that part of that culture is kind of the individual ownership of the automobile, especially when you don't live in an urban center. Certainly those programs you talked about are more relevant in kind of an urban center with a more condensed population. So seeing that kind of trend in kind of American society, and then also looking at, like we talked about, kind of the bursting of the commodities bubble, the falling price of crude, also struggling GM and Ford, who are still, facing possible bankruptcy after, government bailout. How do you see, the trend in individual ownership of green transportation, research going into more greener vehicles? Where do you see that going? And has some of the incentive been lost, kind of in that search for green transportation?
Well, when I was thinking about this presentation, right now, clearly I get excited about this kind of stuff that I'm talking about. But truly, there's a part of me when I think about where are we going to be 10 years from now, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous because I'm not sure that we'll go fast enough. I'm not sure that there was an article also in yesterday's New York Times, talking about in France how there is kind of a feeling of all right, this, one of the positive outcomes of this, the financial collapse, is that we may rethink our values, right? We've been living in a way that outside of our means, on credit, we're going to rethink our values, and this is an opportunity to remember, get back in touch with our values about family and the things that are really important to us, and maybe pull back and shift our values as a society. They've interviewed Karl Lagerfeld at Chanel, who was saying, yeah, it's going to be less about bling bling and more about, something other than bling bling. But then when they asked him at the end, Karl Lagerfeld, well, what are you doing differently? He said, well, we're not doing anything differently. We have limitless budgets and we can just make whatever we want. So how much France is going to change? I'm not sure. How much? I haven't heard that conversation happening in America in any way. sense the collapse. So if you're an environmentalist and you know, consumption is down, and to some degree that's a good thing, right? Because that's actually what you're trying to get at. But if you talk, so you know, when you talk about, I mean, I agree with you. Our car culture probably is not going to change, and I don't know if Obama or anyone else is like, if we're going to be really willing to engage a conversation about, you know, our culture and what's important, because that may be the only way ultimately that we really start to take steps that may actually address the challenges, because I think they're huge. But directly to your point, this is part of the reason why I'm a little concerned, because you know, GM has been talking about cars like the Chevy Volt, their electric car, their plug-in car, for a while. The date that it's supposed to come keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, and I don't know if it's going to get here. And I don't really know what the car companies are going to do to really drive innovation to the degree that we need it. I really don't know. It's a concern, because I agree, we are a car-centric culture. I do hope that things like the Auto XPrize that I mentioned may spur a lot of innovation. But a lot of these companies are struggling too, because it's really hard to build cars. And it's very hard for startups to build cars. There's the Tesla electric car, a Sportster that goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. It costs $100,000. They're having a hard time. And there's lots of companies like that. So this is probably the ultimate challenge, is to try to figure out things like that. You know, where will the innovation come from? Can car companies get us there? What is all of that going to mean, you know, going forward? And what is that all going to mean as we kind of hopefully swing out of this, you know, whether it's a recession or depression or what it is? I wish I had an answer for you, but your question is actually a question that I ask myself.
Josh, complete with a recyclable, reusable bag, we have for you, appropriate to today, some polar fleece. Thanks
Awesome.
very much for being here.
Thank you.
Josh Dorfman.
Thank you. Thank you.